Hello, this is Randy. Welcome back to another edition of Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. The other day I checked the news during a break and a great basketball player had died of cancer, Dikembe Motombo. Later on at another break, I noticed that Pete Rose had passed. It struck me because I had had the opportunity in my life to meet both of these people. I'd like to tell you those stories. I had a cousin that was an amazing baseball player. He's still an amazing athlete and an amazing person. I was drafted in high school. He was the highest draft pick ever out of the state of Utah. He was a pitcher from Tooele. He went on to pitch for several years in the major leagues. One of his teams was the Cincinnati Reds. We came to the Phoenix area from Tucson to see him play in a spring training game. Not sure what the circumstances were, but Larry is only a couple of years older than me. And I remember meeting several people who were famous, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose. We didn't always carry a camera with us back then, but it was exciting to see my cousin and watch him be successful. He was tremendous. I had been a catcher in Little League. He could throw so hard, even with my catcher's mitt, he broke my hand. He was incredible. He was very successful. Went on to become a college coach. Has been successful his life. I haven't been able to spend as much time with him as I'd like to, but he's been pretty amazing. When I was traveling to Houston for business, the sales guy who I started going to take his territory over on the travel part, he had a wife that was ill and he couldn't leave. So they asked if I would mind going. I said I wouldn't, and it'll probably only be 1 or 2 trips. I thought, great. So he and I organized it, and long story short, I believe it was 7 years that I went, maybe longer, before I believe I left the company at that point. But he didn't really have places he would stay, and I had to do it all from scratch. And when I would go to Houston, I would just stay around the periphery of Houston, stay near my first call in the morning and drive after I'd finished that night before. And some of the best people I've ever met are from Houston, though. I really enjoyed it. One of my customers from New Mexico gave me a list of all the best restaurants in Houston and said I would really enjoy going to these restaurants. And I said, great. It was color-coded by the type of restaurant it was. He rated each of them and put what the best meal was there. He also put by dollar signs how expensive it was. This is before Yelp and all those other things. So he had his secretary print that up for me, and it was probably 4 pages, single-spaced. But I kept that and had some really good suggestions. Using that list when I was in Houston, I ate at good restaurants, but 2, I didn't get something that wasn't going to be wonderful. Last thing you need as a salesman is to eat bad food, because you don't really, when you're traveling like that, you don't really have time to recover from a bad meal. You're seeing people as fast and as hard as you can. So one time I had set up appointments in Houston, and I want to say it was in the Buffalo Speedway area. It was a Best Western. Next to it was a Denny's. And I was tired after working, and I checked in, got the air conditioning going, got my clothes hung up for the next day. Went over to this Denny's to get a meal. I didn't think anything of it. I just walk in, get a table. It wasn't until I was seated I realized I was the only Caucasian in that building. Didn't have a problem with that. I ordered my food. A little later, this very deep voice behind me said, "Thank you so much for coming." And I turned and I looked, and I was looking at someone's knee. Look up, and it was Dikembe Motombo. He had, I don't know how many of these Denny's he had in the area, but he would bring his family over from Africa. He would run these Denny's and went around to every one of them every day to check on them. And I just happened to be lucky enough to be in that one that night. So I actually went to these Denny's from time to time that I knew he owned, because I knew there was a chance of seeing him again, thanking him for how well they had cared for me. So I looked out for his tribe, looked out for his countrymen, built hospitals, built schools. He was an incredible man, and I'm glad that I had the chance of meeting him, maybe giving back a little by eating at Denny's. I could have gone somewhere else, but it was right there. I didn't know the area. And remember, it was before GPS. It was using like MapQuest to get from place to place and maps. Just so you know, there was a time when there wasn't GPS on your phone. We used computer programs like MapQuest or paper maps to get us from one point to another. Houston's rather bizarre because it's so big that you have to use toll roads to get around or you'll be stuck in traffic forever. I really enjoyed going back there. I'm sorry that my friend had a situation with his wife and couldn't leave, but I enjoyed going and meeting those folks, coordinating with them. One story that was kind of interesting is I went to see a customer in, I want to say Pasadena. There was a power outage, whole area. I get in there because I have an appointment. The guards are looking at me like, "What are you doing? We're closed." And I said, "Well, I didn't know you're closed, but I have an appointment." So they call and they talk to him and they say, "Well, yeah, we're closed and can't really be here." So I'm talking to the guards telling me that the reason they had a power outage in the area was because a driver coming to make a delivery there had basically left his vehicle in gear and it took out a power pole and line. The driver was fine. It damaged the truck. He wasn't able to make the pickup that day. And it was quite a bit of a problem in that area. So as I was trying to figure out what else to do that day, I noticed that the USS Texas, which was a battleship, was not too far away. At least someplace I could get to on my way to my next stop. So I went to the USS Texas, which was, I believe, in Houston Bay, paid my money. And the guy said, "Well, we've only got 45 minutes till we close." So he says, "You're only going to be able to do one tour." Well, there were about 5 different tours. You guided yourself. I did them all. Now, my dad was on aircraft carriers during World War II. And the Texas, the bunk beds were arranged like they were on some of the aircraft carriers he was on, where they were connected by chain. And so the beds would move, the waves would hit the ship. But I got to see everything. I got to see the big guns. I could stick my head inside the barrels. I even got to see the ice cream machine they had on board. My dad always volunteered to make ice cream. He loved ice cream. By volunteering to make the ice cream, he was able to always have some ice cream, even if it was just a taste. If I recall, there was never enough ice cream for everybody that wanted it. So that's why he was willing to give up his free time to make the ice cream. It was an experience I'm glad I had. But what I didn't realize, they always had these ozone alerts in the Houston area where they'd say, "We got too much ozone." They would close the gyms unless they had a special gym. There was a gym that had a special system that could bring the oxygen level up. And there were a few of those in the area, but most didn't. Hotel exercise centers never did. I remember going out for a walk from a hotel and being picked up by police and brought back. And they said, "We're in an ozone alert. You're not allowed to exercise." I thought that was kind of stupid. But the next day, I woke up from running around this ship, trying to see everything before they kicked me off. And I could hardly move. Why? Because my body breathed in the ozone, but my muscles couldn't utilize it. That's when now I take ozone alerts seriously. You should too. It's something for real. Where I live in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, they don't stop you from exercising, but they probably should. That was not a good feeling. I mean, ever again, overexerted myself on an ozone day. So thank you so much for joining me, for allowing me to share my memories of Pete Rose, Dikembe Motombo, and the USS Texas. So I hope you all have a great day. Bye now.